Hello, everybody, and welcome to this webinar today. Thank you for joining us wherever you are in the world. I thought it would be quite a nice way to start for people to just post in the chat, let us know where you're joining from and perhaps what qualification you're currently studying. So just for a bit of housekeeping for you all today, we will be asking for you to post your questions in the Q&A box in the Zoom menu. And we will also be running polls during the presentation today. So please do look out for those. And what I will do now is I will hand over to our lovely speakers to introduce themselves for this session on IOSH Student Membership and how to maximise your membership. So I'm very pleased to be joined today by two IOSH volunteers who are going to assist me. So I will just hand over to Claire Louise to introduce herself, and then I'll hand over to Matt.
Morning, everyone. I'm Claire Louise. I am currently working as an interim head of health and safety on a large rail project. I have been an IOSH member for 20 years, primarily working in the construction sector. In the last 10 years, I've been working at strategic level, and I'm also an IOSH Chiltern branch member. So hopefully, if you join IOSH, you could hopefully join our branch as well. Nice to meet you all.
That's great. Thanks very much, Claire Louise, and thanks for giving us your time today. I'll just hand over to Matt to do an introduction as well.
Thank you. So my name is Matthew Cooper. I'm currently an IOSH student member. My job is an apprentice in the sort of waste management sector, focusing on glass recycling. So we do a lot of sort of high risk things here. So in terms of volunteering, what I do for IOSH, I'm part of the Future Leaders Steering Group. So I do a lot of content creation, and hopefully, if I'm addressing students or potential students today, I might see you around in that community.
That's great. And again, thank you very much, Matt, for joining us today. And I'm just seeing in the chat, we've got people joining us from across the world. We've got visitors from Nigeria, from Trinidad and Tobago, from the Philippines, Qatar, someone from Suffolk, England, where I'm originally from. So it's really good to see you all in the chat. And thank you very much for joining us today. So let us move forward. If you are here, it probably means that you are one of two things. It either means that you've been thinking about signing up for IOSH student membership and you're not really sure about what it entails, or perhaps you're a student member already, but you're not really sure what you're doing. You don't really know what student membership means, and you want to know how to get the best out of your membership. So we're just going to run a quick poll to see which kind of category you fall into. And if it's neither, you can post in the chat kind of your situation if you'd like to share, but it will hopefully just give us an idea of who we are talking to today. So I'm going to have a look at the chat just to see. We've got more people joining from Staffordshire, from Middlesbrough. Fantastic. Oh, another She Apprentice on the call. A couple of She Apprentices. That's really good to see. Okay. And then hopefully in a minute when we've got our responses in, we can see who we've got joining us. Here we go. Okay, so we've got quite an even distribution. We've got some student members, and we've got people looking to become a student member, and we do have other as well. So I will be checking out the chat box to see who else we've got on the call. So the good news is that you are in the right place. So we are going to go through today a bit of an introduction to student membership, and we're also going to give you a chance to ask lots of questions at the end of the webinar, so we'll leave plenty of time for you. So here is a quick rundown of what we are going to cover today. We're going to briefly explain professional bodies, as for a lot of people, one of the most common questions I get asked is, what actually is a professional body? I don't really know what they are. We're going to talk a bit about chartered membership and how to become a student member. We're going to talk about the way that you can maximise your membership benefits, and we're going to have time for that Q&A that I mentioned. So feel free to share your ideas in the chat. What I really want to know is to gauge an idea from you all. I'm keeping you awake today in the chat. What do professional bodies do, or what do you think they're for? If you can sum it up in a sentence, or if you wanted to if you had to explain to someone what you thought a professional body was, what would you say? And, feel free, Claire Louise and Matthew, to put your thoughts in the chat as well, if you so wish. See if they align with what I've got coming up on this slide. I'm not going to give you any hints.
That's just mean, Charlotte. Everyone's hoping something's
Testing,
going to flash on screen.
testing the speakers as well. Well, while you're having a think about that, okay, so we've got an organisation. Fantastic, Matthew. I mean, you're not wrong.
I might get enter a bit too early.
You're not wrong. So I'll tell you what then, I'll give it a bit of a prompt for you all. So broadly speaking, a professional body represents an occupation on perhaps a local or global scale, or both. And yes, in the chat, it's similar. You might hear it referred to as associations as well. So they often represent a particular occupation. So it might be a marketing organization, it could be managers, it could be engineers. There's lots of them out there. Now, typically, these bodies have been set up to oversee the standards, the conduct, and the practice of the profession. So that is how those professionals perform, how they behave or don't behave themselves, and also how they carry themselves in practice in their day-to-day jobs. They are often not-for-profit organisations, and they are there to serve the public interest. And they also provide a supportive community for professionals to get together and to network. So all those professionals that they represent, it's about giving them that space to meet each other and to help further each other's development. We also, as professional bodies, we offer individual memberships at different levels, and that's really so that we can oversee those standards, but also support people in recognition of those standards that they hold. And that's really one of the most important points for me, is that we promote and celebrate the occupation that we represent as well. So hopefully now people feel a bit more comfortable with the idea of what professional bodies are for. And I will briefly introduce you to IOSH. So IOSH is the Institution of Occupational Safety and Health. And we've been going for quite a while now. We have been going for over 75 years. However, in 2002, we were issued a royal charter, and this enables us to do something very important, which is that we can issue chartered status to members. And I will talk to you a bit about that in a minute. So IOSH is a global not-for-profit membership body, so we have members across the globe, and we operate at a local, national, and international level. But the most important thing is that we're all unified by our mission to be a leading voice in occupational safety and health. We want a safe and healthy world of work, and everyone in that membership wants people to return home from work more well than when they went to work. That's the dream. So I'm sure that plenty of you on the call may have heard the phrase chartered membership before, or perhaps you've seen the post-nominals CMIOSH. Well, chartership really is something that we've been allowed to issue to members who demonstrate that commitment, competence, and credibility in the profession. So we have that authority to be able to ask members to go through a process of, either assessment and interview. There's a few different routes to chartered membership. And really, it's that opportunity for us to award the title and recognise those high levels of competency. So it's a career goal for a lot of professionals to get to chartered membership. It also is one of those things you may have heard, chartered surveyor, chartered accountant. Hearing chartered kind of gives you that status of knowing that you meet the standards of your professional body and you're dedicated to that continuing professional development. And Claire Louise, I know that you went through this process, and so I thought I would just ask you really what was your motivations for going to chartered membership, and how it was.
Yeah, so I've been chartered coming up 10 years now. which makes me feel very old. But I initially started the process, and I'll be completely honest, like most people, work got in the way. So it took me a little bit longer to get to chartership than I'd hoped. I was on the cusp where previously you could get chartership through the old-fashioned term grandfather rights, but I just missed that deadline. So I did take a little bit of a detour through to my chartership, but actually that was really beneficial because I went through the IPD route, which is where you have to do initial professional development with a portfolio. And so having that extra time allowed me to undertake more work-based activities to be able to complete that portfolio. So one thing I would say, although it is a kind of professional milestone, there's no timeline on it. There is in that you have to have a certain amount of experience to be able to progress, but once you've got that, you don't have to do it immediately if kind of you've got other things going on. But what I would say is the reason I did eventually take the plunge and commit to getting the chartership was it's really great for your recruitment prospects. Organisations really like to know that they are hiring someone with that competence and credibility. And although it's possible to have that completely without being chartered, just having that stamp of approval from your professional body really, really does help. So I would, obviously you guys are really early in your careers with your student membership, but I would say if you can, it's well worth progressing through the membership levels within IOSH, and there is support to help you do that as well.
That's great. I think that's a really good summary as well, that, you know, chartership has to work for you. And we do really value people who go through the process. And there's a lot of celebration that takes place. You'll see it on people's social media accounts. You'll see people talking about it. It is a really lovely environment and community to sort of celebrate when people go through it. So in terms of that membership structure then, so the majority of you either will be or will be wanting to join the student membership category. Now, we've got different membership levels that recognise a different level of experience, knowledge, and qualification of people that work in occupational safety and health. Now, you may have heard that we're launching new membership grades soon, and on the screen I've shared those just so that by the time you've finished your studies, these will have come into effect. I've also put a QR code on the screen because we're not going to get into the detail of membership today. We can always support you with that outside of the webinar, and I'll share an email at the end. But what I will say is that depending on your qualification when you finish, you may either be eligible for technical or certified member, and that just is to do with what qualification you've completed and what experience you have. So in terms of what you need to worry about right now, it's student membership. If you want to read more about the changes that are coming into our membership, you can scan the QR code, or you can just Google IOSH membership and our page has got the details. So for student membership, and apologies to those of you on the call who are already student members, who just bear with us while we go through this. It's a very simple process to sign up for student membership. You can go onto our website, iosh.com/students. You can upload proof that you're a student during the process, and that just needs to show your name, the name of the qualification you're doing, and your study start and end date, so we know that you are a current student. And then from there, you'll be asked to pay your £15 membership fee, and it is just £15 for the duration of your studies, so that we can support students into the membership. So we think it's a very good deal. So all of these members that we've talked about are based across the world, and they are, like Claire Louise and Matthew, they are students, graduates, educators, technicians, managers, you name it, we've got them, and they represent the health and safety profession in every industry that you could imagine across those 130 countries. And many of our students and working members are mobile, and they work or study in different countries as well. So on the call, I know we've got people sort of spread across a few different locations, and it's very much the case that IOSH is becoming this global language that's recognized in many different countries, and it does help with that portability of your qualification qualifications and your kind of status. But you might be thinking at this point, okay, IOSH sounds great and all, or professional bodies sound great, but why do people join them? What are their personal motivations for actually signing up to a professional body? And Claire, Louise, and Matthew, you might want to see if you yourselves are reflected in any of these. I've noticed that there are typically about 4 different groups or personas that student members or new joiners to professional bodies fall into when I'm talking to them. So the first group is our advocates. Now, these are very principled people and they're driven by their values, and they're looking to influence change with a strong collective voice. And so they like things like the opportunity to network or get involved with our campaigns. We've got our careerists, and these are very ambitious individuals who are looking to progress in their career to those highest levels. And you'll find that they're very determined to get to those chartered levels of membership. And we do have a lot of careerists within those 50,000 members. We have our learners, and they're very focused on acquiring new knowledge. They're very curious. They're always looking to learn or acquire new knowledge. And you might find that some of them join multiple professional bodies according to their interests. And then finally, we have our searchers. Now, these are quite often new professionals and they are looking for help, guidance. They're exploring what their options are and they want to kind of get involved with the membership to pick up some more information and talk to people about what they could do next. So perhaps some of you might want to share in the chat if any of these kind of ring true for you, if you see yourself reflected. You might reflect in a couple of those types. We often get people who are careerists and advocates paired together, for example. So Claire, Louise, or Matthew, do you feel represented by any of those persona types? You do?
I would say throughout my career, I probably joined as a searcher kind of early in my career. But throughout my time with kind of IOSH as a member, I've moved through kind of because there is that opportunity to learn and engage. So I've taken advantage of that. I'll be completely honest, I am a careerist. I always wanted to get my CMIOSH. It just took a little bit longer than I was expecting. And I'm actually currently going for fellowship. And as part of that, you become an advocate because you get that opportunity to do sessions like this today and other things with the branch meetings, etc., to push forward the health and safety kind of agenda. So I'm a little bit, what's the word? Greedy in that I'm for.
Flexible. So that makes sense. What about you, Matthew? Do you feel any affinity with any of these?
I think when I joined, I was more of a learner. I wasn't fully aware of the benefits that IOSH would bring to me, like I am now. But I think as I've progressed, I'm both learner and searcher. As a student, it makes sense. I'm here for help and advice, which I get all the time. It does really help towards my apprenticeship, the options that are available to me.
That's good. Advice all the time, whether you want it or not, I imagine. That's fantastic. Well, the good news is that no matter people's reason for joining, we have different member benefits to sort of help with those different types. And as your professional body, our kind of promise to you at this point, our goal is to keep you up to date, to support you to improve your skills over time, continually across your career, to offer career advice and guidance and support if you're looking to move into the profession or move up, to connect you with other like-minded professionals, to give you opportunities to share your voice with our various campaigns, and also to recognise and celebrate you, as we talked about earlier. So how do we actually do this for you? Well, like most professional bodies, we have a suite of member benefits that are available to you. There are quite a lot on the screen, and you'll be pleased to know we're not going to go through all of them, but we're going to focus in on the ones that I think are going to be the most useful for you in the first 6 months of your studies or of your membership generally. Now, this is just to remind you that if you are ever looking for any of these benefits, you can go onto our website, and at the top of the screen, you will see My IOSH, and from there you can reach all the benefits that we talk about today. So if you're ever lost on the website, then you can click on My IOSH to get to those. So I've told you what our promise to you is, and now I need to ask you for a promise to us. You will probably hear professional memberships described as a bit like a gym membership, in that you get out what you put in. If you're someone that goes to the gym maybe once a month or once every other month, you're going to see minimal results. You're maybe not going to feel the value of your gym membership. If you're someone that goes regularly, you're perhaps going to see more consistent success. You're going to get to know the regulars in the gym, and you're going to have a more fruitful experience and reach your goals more quickly. Or if you go to the gym too much, if you engage with your membership too much, you might neglect other areas of your life. So the important thing for us to say is that it's all about balance. We would like you to maintain your engagement with us, and that's one of the best ways to maximize your membership. So what I will do now is I'll go through a checklist of sorts for you, and these are the things that we recommend you do to help maximize your membership. So the first thing that we suggest you do is keep up to date. And this will probably be easier for the learners on the call because you'll already be desperate to be up to date anyway. So as an IOSH student member, you will get sent a hard copy or electronic copy of the IOSH magazine, and you can see an example of that on the screen. And IOSH magazine is one of the most popular benefits with our students. I've done focus groups with students, and they've sort of had their magazine in the background that they're waving. It's got really good in-depth articles, a lot of member contributions. You'll have podcasts from the likes of Matthew talking about their experiences of future leaders and the different communities available at IOSH. And we'll also put out research reports as well as legal updates. And quite often there'll be comparative pieces between different countries and how the OSH systems are similar or different. So that's a very well-loved member benefit. So we do recommend that you keep up to date and you read that when it comes in the post or when it arrives in your inbox. We also send you a monthly student newsletter, and this, I can tell you from looking at the statistics, is our most well-read newsletter. And this is where we connect you with all things at IOSH that are going to be beneficial for you. So we will filter through all of the things that are going on, and we'll pick out some highlights for you. And then finally, and this is particularly useful for your studies, depending on what kind of qualification you're doing, it can help. We do specialist research, and a lot of it has a very practical application. So it might be to do with occupational cancers, for example. And then we also do top level advocacy work, such as this Catch the Wave campaign you can see on the screen. So that is your first way to maximize your membership. The second way, and one of the ways that people often forget, is that we have an entire platform dedicated to e-learning for your employability. And this is essentially, you can see a screenshot there, an online area where members can log in and they can access e-learning, things like videos, articles, quizzes, entire training modules about all of those employment and soft skills. And actually, I had a look at the data only this week, and the things that are most popular with students are those kind of career tools and specifically the e-learning section, which I'll talk to you about in a moment. So when you first log in, you'll get this career pulse tool pop up, and it will get you to do a quick self-assessment to kind of gauge your employability. So we're actually going to have a go at doing that now on the call. We're going to launch a poll to see how you feel about your employability. How would you rate your employment skills from 1 to 5? If 1 is, I don't really know what employment skills are, and 5 is, anyone would hire me in a heartbeat. Please do let us know how you feel. We often get a mixed response to this question. It's incredible sometimes to see how people rate themselves very, very highly. And then, we'll say, I don't actually know what employment skills are, but you've just given yourself a 5. In a moment, we'll have a look at the results and we'll see if any of the tools will be useful for you. Okay, so we do have a mixture on the call then. We've got a few people who feel perhaps not very employable. We have a few who feel very employable, but the majority of you are falling in 3 and 4. So perhaps you're familiar with some of the things that you could be working on, but they just need a little bit more attention. So the Career Hub would be a really good way for you to enhance those skills. And it saves you having to look around lots of different places online. You can just go to the one place. So some things that we think will help you during your studies are that there's an entire e-learning section on language and writing. And this is really useful if you're having to do long form writing for your qualification, especially if you're being asked, for example, to be writing in English and English is not your first language. It also has training around specific softwares, such as the Microsoft Office package. So if you are writing long form documents for the first time and you need to use some of the more advanced features, that can be really helpful. And then finally, on those employment skills we talked about earlier, there are particular modules around creating a great CV or being good at interviews, as well as particular skills that employers are looking for candidates to fill. So I highly recommend this as part of your membership, especially if you're looking to either move into the profession or get a promotion or career change. This is a really good tool for you to use. So the next thing that you can do to maximize your membership is to set up a mentoring profile. Now, if you've not been introduced to mentoring before, it is essentially a way of being paired up with someone who is more experienced than you, who can help you navigate your membership and your career more generally. It's also a way of getting a fresh perspective on a lot of the things that you're experiencing. And we've noticed we have introduced a reverse mentoring feature, and more often we're having people actually have a go at being paired up with someone more senior to give them a fresher perspective on, for example, a new emerging work area. It might be something they're learning about in their qualification, or it could be something, you know, that they are passionate about, for example, equality, diversity, and inclusion. So mentoring is a really good way for you to build your network as well if you want to meet someone in the profession and you don't have any contacts yet. And I thought I'd just head over to Claire Louise or Matt to see if either of you have got any experience with mentoring and any advice.
Yes, so I am an IOSH mentor at the moment. I have 4 mentees currently, and they work across a variety of industries. So I specifically try to assist people not in construction because I do that in my kind of work life. So I'm supporting a lady that works for a local council, a gentleman who works in the NHS, a lady who was trying to get her first role in health and safety. She'd done some qualifications, but her job didn't align with that at the moment. And also a lady who is on her SHE technician apprenticeship with a waste organisation. And it's been really, really beneficial just to see kind of their progression, supporting them quite often with non-health and safety topics, so things like confidence, but just having a different pair of eyes looking at a kind of problem can be quite helpful. So that's been really beneficial. And also I use the mentoring platform because I've got 2 mentors who are assisting me with my fellowship application. So it's really available for everyone. And there are hundreds of people on there. So you're pretty much guaranteed to find somebody that you can work with. And also everyone is very open to the fact that some relationships won't work, and that's fine. You just go and select someone else. You have to find the right match. But because there's such a vast number of people on there, it's a really useful platform. So that would be my take on it. I don't know if Matthew's got any experience.
So I've not done any mentoring myself, but I am a mentee. And from a student's perspective, all I can say is it's massively worth doing. Basically, you're leveraging someone else's experience, give you sort of valuable stories, learn about the effects of something before you implement it, can point out your weaknesses, and this has been already pointed out, they can help with a lot of the other skills, not so much directly related to health and safety. So my mentor, for example, has helped me with my CV, personal statement, things like that. But yeah, massive help. I highly recommend having a mentor.
It's really good to hear those stories. And, one of the things that since I've been at IOSH for 3 years now, and every time I've spoken to a volunteer about mentoring, the incredible work that they do, especially for students. I mean, our chair of the Caribbean branch, he's very, very good at mentoring students at local universities. And I think that it's a real testament to just how much the kind of members and volunteers at IOSH really get involved with helping hand the ladder back down to people who are entering the profession. So it is a really, really good idea for maximising your membership. Get involved with mentoring because it will really help you. And if you're new to mentoring, the mentoring platform is very straightforward, and there is guidance on there about how the process works, how to get the most out of the process. There's a few videos too, and it does show you the kind of the way that the process works. So hopefully you'll be able to log on, set up a profile, and get started very easily. So we have talked about those 50,000+ members and the different networks available. And perhaps one of the most important ones I think that exists is our branch network. So we're going to run a poll in the chat again, just to see if people are aware of branches on the call, if you know what they are, if you're comfortable, how IOSH branches work, because that's one of the things that students don't always realize exist when they first join for student membership, or they don't necessarily engage with during their studies. And actually some of the most active and sort of successful members that I speak to were ones that got involved with their kind of local networks quite quickly. So we'll have a check of people on the call to see how comfortable you are with the concept of IOSH branches, and then we'll talk more about them. Okay, so this is in line with what I expected. We've got some people who have an awareness, nearly a fifth, and then the majority of people either unsure or they weren't aware of them at all. So that's really useful for us to know. So we do have over 40 branches across the globe, sort of centered in these key areas. As IOSH started in the UK originally, there are a number in the UK, but our most recent sort of branch that we've has been founded has been the West Africa branch, with a number of networks beneath it. So branches are a chance to sort of get IOSH members and OSH professionals in local communities to get together for things like meetings and conferences, workshops and site visits, for example. And they strengthen that relationship between IOSH and the OSH communities at a local level. And thank you to Claire. We're going to talk a little bit about the Chiltern branch as well in a moment, but I will also just mention that we have 18 industry groups as well. So if you're interested in a particular industry, whether it's something like healthcare or sports grounds and events or aviation, then we've got 18 different industry groups for you to explore. And you can read about them on our website, or even better, if you would prefer to hear from them, there is a series of interviews that our Future Leaders community ran with them last year, all about how to break into those particular industries. And I highly recommend those. They can be found on the IOSH YouTube channel. So what I'm going to do now is hand over to Claire Louise to talk about the Chiltern branch, which she is involved with. So thank you very much, Claire Louise.
No, that's okay. So it was just a spotlight on my branch because it was an opportunity to engage some new health and safety professionals early in the career. So I'm on the Chiltern branch, which is primarily based in kind of the home counties just north of London in the UK. But we do a lot of online webinars, and anyone can join those. You don't have to be a Chiltern branch member. And so I've just highlighted a couple of the upcoming Chiltern branch webinars that you may wish to join. And as if we had planned it, but I assure you we didn't, on the 19th of October, we've actually got an online webinar around coaching and mentoring and what's the difference. So if kind of the plug that Matthew, Charlotte and I have just mentioned about mentoring has stuck with you, there's the opportunity to join that and ask some more questions around what that means and how you can go about that. But we also do general online webinars. So we've got a legal update that's coming up just around what may have changed in legislation and how to comply with that. And then we have some more progressive webinars around kind of AI and how that could benefit health and safety, and how we can adopt that technology in the work that we undertake. And then we have a full year's worth of schedule, but I didn't want to bore you with everything that we're doing. But we do also have some face-to-face events, like Charlotte mentioned, where we are able to visit particular locations and understand their health and safety, or come together as a group for more of a networking activity, so that we can strengthen those relationships. But if anyone's interested to join any of those webinars, you can find them on our Chiltern Branch LinkedIn page, but also on the Chiltern Branch IOSH page as well. So feel free to come along and join us for any of those.
That's great. And I think, yeah, you really hit the nail on the head by talking about the way that the kind of pandemic changed a lot of the ways that branches operated. So we saw a lot more of collaboration between branches. I remember attending in East Anglia, or was East Midlands branch, and the Caribbean branch sort of did a joint event, and we saw a lot more of that, as well as people kind of, if, say, for example, you were looking to work in a particular country, you could go and attend, branch meetings in that particular area to learn more about the industries on the ground. So I think branches are a really fantastic way for people who are early in their membership and in the profession to get involved, or if you're career changing as well and you're looking for that advice and support. So it was interesting to see that not many people knew about branches. So hopefully after this, you'll be able to go and have a look at the full list on our website, see if you've got one local to you or if there's one in an area you're interested in, and then maybe attend some meetings. So the next networking community that we thought we would mention, because this really is one of the best ways to maximize your student membership, is our Future Leaders community that we've sort of spoken about briefly throughout this webinar so far. So our Future Leaders community is really for people who are entering the profession. So we're looking at IOSH student members, people who are 35 years old or younger, or people who have 5 or fewer years OSH experience. However, if you don't fit those criteria and you feel you'd benefit from the group, you can also opt into the group as well. So this group is really dedicated to kind of producing support and resources and advice pieces, all kinds of things to support people in those groups. And they are led by a volunteer steering group called the Future Leaders Steering Group. And Matt is actually on that group this year. And so Matt, if you really briefly want to, well, I say briefly, as long as you want actually, if you want to tell us a bit about your involvement so far, any expectations you sort of have, and what you're hoping to achieve in your tenure.
Yeah, so the steering group, it's been set up to support sort of the future of the health and safety profession. Sort of our job is to provide tailored guidance, content on social media and the IOSH platforms, and to promote health and safety as actually a first career choice for younger people. So just some of the things that we've been going through so far in the few months that we've been running. So we've got the Pathways into OSH podcast. That was with me and Carly, just going through some of the barriers we faced, where we started, how we actually came to be health and safety professionals. I know the previous student webinar to this also had involvement of a member of the Future Leaders community. So we provide opinions and stories in the IOSH magazine. I don't believe many of you would have had that, but in the last issue, we had several pieces from our group. We're trying to speak to the presidential team as well, so we're actually forwarding the views of the Future Leaders community, the people who are new up to the profession, forward their views to sort of higher up in IOSH, see if we can influence that. We're trying to do further work on the actual barriers into OSH, hopefully to break those down, bring more people in, and make it easier to access the profession altogether. And we're also hoping to actually push the sort of message to the businesses. We want businesses to invest in health and safety, especially with IOSH's current strategy, to sort of improve globally the health and safety standards. And hopefully we can achieve that by things like setting up more branches. We had the West African branch recently created, and I'm hoping we can expand from there, set up more.
Sounds fantastic. Sounds ambitious, which is what we like about the Future Leaders community steering group, is that you'll keep everyone on their toes. And you've really, the group's just got endless enthusiasm, especially for sort of things like horizon scanning and upcoming topics and problem solving. So I'm really looking forward to some of the work that I know that you're all going to be engaged with this year in terms of, setting the standard for managers, employers, recruiters, and knowing what candidates, for example, want from the jobs market. And as well, we quite often see people who start off in the Future Leaders community steering group kind of end up climbing the ranks of membership. So I know that previous members have then wanted to go on and join council, for example. So it's really, really great to see people get involved, especially for you, Matt. You're doing your qualification, you're doing your work as part of that, and to do this as well is really, really commendable. So just a sort of hats off to you for doing that with your time as well. Um, so really, as we're coming to the end of this checklist for you all to do as part of your maximizing your membership, one thing that we have to mention, I think it would be wrong for me to not mention, is CPD, because it is something that you will hear professional bodies talk about a lot. And the idea is continuing professional development is something that you will do throughout your career. So, for anyone who's not heard about CPD before, it's often a mandatory part of membership when you get into those higher levels of membership. And it's a process by which you assess your current skills and think, are there any skills gaps that I have? And normally you're assessing yourself against the standard that a professional body has. So, IOSH, for example, has got a competency framework that you assess yourself against. It's sort of about a list of skills. I think there's about 12 areas with 69 competencies within those areas. So from there, you find your skills gaps, you undertake some learning to help improve those gaps, you record your activities so you can remember and evidence what you did. And then you apply and reflect your learning to your day-to-day practice. And the idea is that you then take that forward and do that throughout your career. Now, we won't talk too much in detail about that today because we have recently done a webinar on using self-assessment tools and doing CPD. So you can find that on our YouTube channel, and there's just a picture of it there. And I do encourage you, if you want to learn more about how to use self-assessments or how to do CPD, then definitely, as part of understanding membership, we'd strongly recommend you go and check out that webinar. And then a nice one, sort of as we're coming to the end of this list, and something that I'm very proud of, is that at IOSH we have the IOSH Student Member Bursary. And this is where you can apply for up to £250 towards your personal development. So it might be something like going to a conference, doing some training. It could be like getting some additional textbooks or course materials for your studies. And it's a really great way as well to get that recognition from IOSH and engage with us and tell us a bit about yourself. So there's an online application form you fill out, and you let us know what you'd like the funding for. And from there, internally, there's a panel that allocates that bursary out. And as this quote says from one of the students that was awarded it last year, it is an achievement, and it will help you out, especially if there's something that you really need to succeed, whether it's a particular piece of training or a particular academic subscription, whatever it is. And it just helps take that burden off your shoulders and can help you progress forward. So we are launching that very soon. All student members will get a notification via email when that is live. So we do encourage you to attend. As any student member of IOSH is eligible to apply. It doesn't matter where you are in the world. It is a global bursary, so please do apply if there is something that you would like to ask for assistance with. So we've gone through a few ways of maximizing your membership today. And if you're like me, then you might want a list to remember. So you can go away after this and start actioning some of these items. So just as a reminder, keep up to date with your reading. Apply to the student bursary. I would be very happy if you ordered that. Try out the Career Hub and maybe get yourself more confident so that you can go from a 3 to a 5 on that employability scale. sign up for mentoring and find someone to help you with your development, join a branch meeting, join the Future Leaders LinkedIn group, and that was shared, the QR code on the Future Leaders slide. But if you go onto LinkedIn and put in Future Leaders IOSH group, it will come up. And then finally, learn about CPD. Now, you don't have to do all of this at once. You could perhaps, try and spread this out over the next 6 months, maybe choose one activity to do per month, pace yourself, as we talked about earlier, like with your gym membership. And then from there, hopefully in 6 months' time, you'll feel completely on board with your IOSH student membership. You'll know what you're doing and you'll have started to build that network. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go over to Q&A, leave plenty of time for you to get your questions in. I'm going to look at the chat and the Q&A box, but if you do want to come onto the microphone to ask a question, if you want to be brave, please feel free. So I will now go and have a look at the Q&A. Right, so we've got a couple of questions coming in about membership. We've got one student from Christian who's asking about upgrading from upgrading into Tech IOSH. What I can do is I can email you the process after this. We give all student members 3 months to upgrade their membership at the end of their studies. We basically ask you to submit your CV, not your CV, sorry, your certificate and your transcript, so that we're able to see that you've completed your qualification. So I can send you some more information after this webinar. Right, let's have a look at the next question. How much is the membership fee? So the membership fee for student membership is £15, paid once. So it's not an annual fee, you just pay it once for the duration of your studies. And we do have concessionary rates available as well for things such as unemployment or low wage or sort of career break, that sort of thing. So if you put in IOSH concessionary membership into Google, that will bring up those rates as well. Are you able to advise the best training provider for IOSH training? I will not make a comment on the best training provider for IOSH training, as we have to remain impartial. But what I would advise is that you read reviews of what provider you've been researching, talk perhaps to other IOSH members in your local community and see if there's any that they're aware of that have got, current openings, and see what they say. Let's have a look. How many students do mentors typically mentor, or is it down to personal preference? I imagine it can be time consuming. That is a very good question. I don't know if Claire, Louise, you want to comment, simply because you're mentoring 4 people at the moment, and that seems like quite a lot to me personally. So we differ already.
It can be. Quite often in a mentoring relationship, you're not having weekly conversations. It could be monthly or quarterly, depending on the career stage someone is at. So I tend to cap myself at 5. So I do have a mentor through, or a mentee even through another process. So that's my 5. But I also know IOSH mentors that have 13. So it really is personal preference as to how much time you can give and how much of your time the mentee needs. So that's part of one of the initial conversations to establish the relationship around kind of how frequently you wish to be in contact and what assistance can be provided. So yeah, it's really personal preference, and as Charlotte mentioned earlier about that balance of making sure that it works for you with your kind of working and home life as well.
Definitely. And I think you raised a really good point earlier around mentoring relationships. Some of them don't work. I think especially if your expectations are misaligned with a mentor. So it's really important to have those conversations early. And if you are someone, for example, I was mentored outside of the IOSH scheme, as I'm an education professional, and so I met with my mentor once a month, and that was fine for me. But actually, if you're someone that needs to meet more regularly and your mentor really can't do that, then it's important to have those conversations early on. And then perhaps it might be the case that you find a different mentor, or you just both realign your expectations. Interesting question on mentoring
Sorry, Charlotte,
come in.
before you
Go ahead,
despair, the
Louise.
other thing is you can have more than one mentor. So
Mm.
it may be having kind of people from different backgrounds, different industries, or different career stages may also be beneficial. So you don't have to have one person that does it all for you. So that's another way of looking at it. Similarly, you also don't necessarily want 13 mentors because you're never going to get a chance to take on any of the suggestions that they give you. But yeah, you don't just have to have one relationship, it can be a few.
That's a really good point. We've got someone in the chat, Michelle, asking about mentors for people who have dyslexia. And that's actually a really, really interesting question because I don't know if you've seen any of the kind of work that's been done from the current IOSH presidential team, but there's been a real focus lately on in the last sort of 12 months on neurodiversity and how you can sort of support each other. For example, I know that there's been some quite deep conversations around things like dyslexia, ADHD, and our current president, Lawrence Webb, is really passionate in that area. So it's the sort of thing that you can definitely put on your profile as wanting support with, and that will help mentors, determine whether that's something that they can help you with. And also there is quite a lot on the IOSH Career Hub as well. There's a whole section dedicated to sort of support at work with different conditions, for example, that I'd highly rate. So yes, we've seen people connecting on the mentoring platform and in IOSH networks more generally who are kind of bonding over those kind of different experiences, but also sharing what's worked for them, demystifying some of the kind of misconceptions. And if you're interested, we do have a neurodiversity series that is on our YouTube channel that got really, really good views, actually, really good engagement, which didn't surprise me. But I don't know if either of you've got anything you want to add to that. Okie dokie. I shall go back to Q&A. So we've got people asking about extending memberships. So for student membership, if you want to extend your membership, it's normally because you're moving the end date of your qualification. So we had some people extending during the pandemic, for example, because their qualifications were pushed back or because their end date was moved. If you start a new qualification, that would be seen as you've finished your student membership and you'd move into your next member grade. Depending on your experience and qualification, that would either be affiliate or technical or graduate membership. But I can email you afterwards and we can have a little chat about your situation and see what the best option is for you. Let's have another look for any other questions coming in. Interesting question here. Someone who's done IOSH working safely and wants to know what's next for them. I think it would help to have a bit more context around what you would like to do next, as that might help us give you some advice. For example, if you want to move into working in occupational safety and health full time. So if you want to put a bit more detail either in the Q&A box or in the chat, we might be able to help you further. While we're waiting for that to come in, I thought I would just ask Claire Louise or Matt, is there any other advice, guidance, or anything you'd like to say to anyone else on the call who may have joined today who at this point in their membership journey? Obviously, we've got Matt, who's been a member more recently, and Claire Louise, you've been a member for longer. So any advice you'd like to share?
I think something I did when I started is I didn't get involved in social media. I didn't think it'd actually do much for me, but social media is mostly a massive help. Using LinkedIn, sort of the people you can connect with, the advice they can give, it keeps you up to date on things like events, what's going on. You can drop into a lot of events that are really relevant to you. So for example, just in my workplace, dust, it can be an issue that we need to control. And I didn't really see anything on that until I started actually being involved in LinkedIn. And before long, there were branch events around us. There's people that advertise external events there as well and get involved in. Really helps if you're an apprentice specifically, because that can go towards your off-the-job training.
That's a really good point. The sort of power of having that online network through social media. Again, it's one of those things that if you're using it for work for the first time, there is a lot of guidance on the Career Hub around how to best use it for work. But I personally think it is an incredible tool for getting yourself out there. I cannot tell you how disappointed I am when I see a member doing something really great on a from our engagement with them, but I can't find them online to contact them or to see what more work they're doing. And it happens often with apprenticeships, like apprentices. I will want to reach an apprentice and it's quite hard to find them. So just building a LinkedIn profile and starting to add some detail is a great point. And Claire Louise, have you got anything you'd like to add as well?
Yeah, when I joined, LinkedIn didn't exist. But what I would say is we've not really touched on it, but there are also the IOSH forums. Though it's kind of an older school social media platform, really, really useful in my early days, being able to search for some of my questions and see the various perspectives on them. And also being able to ask and interact with kind of other OSH professionals. And they do still kind of run. I quite often dip in and see what's going on. But yeah, probably LinkedIn is the newer version. And it is really beneficial from a health and safety perspective to see what other professionals are doing, but also from a career perspective to start building your personal brand around health and safety and IOSH. So yeah, add that to the checklist at the bottom.
For sure. I like that one. And for any questions that we've not reached today, for example, I can see Iani in the chat asking a question about your course at UCC. I will be in contact with you directly about some of those more niche queries today. So rest assured you will get an email from me in the days following this session. So what I will do to close is I'll just share the email address with you, which is studentmembership@iosh.com. Do ask any question that you have and we'll be able to help or point you in the right direction. That's one of the best pieces of advice I can give members for maximizing their membership is if you need something and you can't find it or you think it doesn't exist, tell us and the chances are we'll be able to work on that for you or point you in the right direction. So please do get in touch. So I just want to finish the webinar by thanking again Claire Louise and Matt for joining us today, giving their time over this lunchtime where we're based to deliver this session. It's really, really great to have volunteers on board because volunteers really are the heart and soul of IOSH. And I want to thank everyone who's joined the call today, wherever you are in the world, and I will be in contact with you afterwards to answer all those additional queries. And thank you very much. We wish you the best of the rest of the week and take care.